Bitcoin as digital gold. Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell has characterized Bitcoin as digital gold, highlighting its role as a speculative asset rather than a conventional currency. He noted that Bitcoin's volatility limits its use as a medium of exchange or traditional store of value, positioning it more as a digital counterpart to gold rather than a competitor to US dollar. Now, the implication of this is two ways. From one perspective, I still think that Bitcoin to gold is a speculative asset, as said by Jay Powell. And it's not yet there to use it as a hedging asset, for example, inflation or a financial crisis. That's because the volatility of Bitcoin makes it completely impossible to use it as a store of value. And historically, currencies and gold has been a perfect way to preserve value. So when you look at from this perspective on gold and Bitcoin and factoring in the data which came out yesterday from the US, for example, the all-important ISM-PMI dropped from 56% down to 52.1, accounting for about 80% of the US GDP, which is a huge number. The softer services sector growth fueled bets on a more dovish Fed rate path. It's also worth mentioning that the ADP Non-Farm Employment as well missed expectations. Employment only increased 146,000 in November as opposed to over 180,000 in October. Now, Jay Powell reiterated a cautious approach to rate cut, citing low unemployment and progress on inflation. However, his positive outlook on the US market ignited risk appetite, setting a tone for a favorable Asian session and further new all-time highs for US30 and Nasdaq, for example. So just summarize everything as I said, most of the data yesterday which came out should be bullish for gold. But the commentary from Jay Powell on Bitcoin as a digital gold and the positivity on the US market is actually having the opposite effect, and gold should sell off. When the risk appetite is increasing and investors and traders favoring long-term investment or just speculative assets such as stocks and Bitcoin, usually gold gets into the background and all the attention is moving to crypto assets and stocks. So pulling up the gold chart and adding Bitcoin to it, we can see the correlation between the two assets. Historically, gold has been a hedging asset against inflation and financial crisis, but Bitcoin is a speculative asset. The red line is representing gold and the candle chart is Bitcoin. The direct correlation is almost obvious. As you can see, when gold is going down, Bitcoin is going up. And when I zoom in, yesterday you can see there is a huge spike in Bitcoin, but gold remained flat. This further emphasizes the speculative behavior of Bitcoin compared to gold. Then if I move back to the pure gold chart, you can see that gold is still moving sideways because investors and traders are very cautious and waiting for more confirmations from the market. The data which came out yesterday was very deflationary. ISM non-manufacturing moving down from 56% to around 52.1, which is quite deflationary, showing that the US economy is slowing down in terms of the service sector, which adds up to about 80% of the US GDP. Yields on US government bonds on the short and the long end, so the 2 and the 10-year treasury yields, showing that the risk premium is also decreasing, which means that investors want less money for their investment in US government bonds. So when the yields are coming down, that is a sign in the market that investors and traders are speculating and moving to a risk-on mode, favoring riskier and more speculative assets such as stocks and Bitcoin. So despite the deflationary data, gold hasn't moved up that much. But when you look at stocks, for example, US30 and Nasdaq, it did move quite a bit. But still not as much Bitcoin. There is a massive spike on the Bitcoin chart if you look at it. And from this perspective, when we see a deflationary data but a risk-on mode in the markets, the outlook for gold is not very good. And I'm still remaining in the short positions and I'm expecting gold to drop further down. But of course, today we're going to have the continuing and the initial jobless claim, which is another representation of the US labor and job market. Now, if the continuing and initial jobless claim comes out significantly lower than expected, that's another deflationary sign and in theory should push gold up, invalidating the sell position. But if the data comes out significantly higher than expected, that is an inflationary sign and the US economy is overheating, which means it's going to push down gold on the expectation that the Fed is going to hold interest rate as it is or not going to cut. So the market is really indecisive when it comes to gold, but what I can see is yields coming down, speculative assets such as Bitcoin is going up. So in theory, gold should continue lower. But it doesn't end there, because on Friday we're going to have the notorious non-farm payroll, and this is what every trader and investor is waiting. Now, if non-farm payroll comes out significantly lower than expected, that's again deflationary and should push gold to new highs. But if you're comparing gold to risky assets such as Bitcoin, investors and traders already favoring Bitcoin compared to gold, because Bitcoin is a speculative asset and gold is a hedging asset. And right now, what I see in the market from the yields and everything else I explained, right now the market is in a risk on mode. So Bitcoin has more upside potential than gold. So the bias remains cautiously bearish on gold, and you can see that I'm still running in profits on the gold short position. But depending on the data which come out today, initial and continuing jobless claims and the NFP on Friday, most likely I'm going to take some profit off the table because the uncertainty is very high. Remember that we had Hurricane Milton, and also we are in the run-up period for Christmas, which provides about 40% of all the profits for all American companies. But to emphasize again, I remain cautiously bearish on gold. I hope you enjoyed the explanation. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and make sure you hit the bell button so you don't miss out any notification when I upload the video or going live. Thank you so much. This is the Alpha FX.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.